Hello friends and welcome to today's current affairs session. So we are in the 18th week of our discussion on the current affairs. I, Snigdha, discuss with you current affairs related to your international part, your history part and art and culture section, right? So the topics that we are going to discuss today are these as shown in the index here, right? So the first topic that we will be discussing will be related to child labor. So there is a report by UN on the child labor data that is prevalent in the world. So we'll discuss in detail all that data and also the topic of child labor, since this topic is very important for your society perspective, from your essay perspective, for your ethics questions also. There might be case studies related to child labor. So this entire topic will help you a lot, especially the data that I am going to provide here. It will be very helpful for you in writing good answers, right? Okay. So the next important topic that we will discuss today is the CPRE report. Already I have discussed this report thrice because this is a very important report. Today there are some more additional findings that have been presented by this report regarding nuclear weapons that we will discuss, right? The next will be little discussion on the G7 summit. Although this is not going to picture much in your mains exam, but still you should have a knowledge about G7 summit for prelims and also for mains in, from the perspective of understanding the entire world scenario and the geopolitics of the world, right? So again this topic will be discussing. Then a global infrastructure investment project or partnership has been launched by G7, a very important geopolitical development. So again we'll discuss it in detail. And then finally we saw the conduct of 14th BRICS summit now recently in the past week by the member countries. So what all is BRICS about, what are its objectives, and what are the outcomes of this recent summit, all that we'll be discussing, right? So now let's begin the discussion. I hope I am audible to everyone. If you have any issue with the ongoing video, you can type it in the comment section, right? So the very first topic that we are going to discuss today is the Child Labor Day, right? So the prevalence of child labor in the entire world is a very big issue, right? So we'll discuss the data and the reasons behind all this. So सबसे पहले we'll discuss why this is currently in news. As I told you, we saw that the United Nations observed the World Day Against Child Labor, right? Yearly this day is celebrated to increase awareness about the exploitation, child related exploitation that is happening around the world. This day is celebrated to raise awareness among the population, right? Yes, audible? Okay. So that is why this topic is in news. So the purpose of this Child Labor Day, as I told you, is to bring attention to the evils of child labor. जैसे पूरी दुनिया में what are the issues that are resulting in child labor, how the world can come together to prevent the menace of child labor. That is what is the motive of this day, right? So now the theme of this year's Child Labor Day is this, that is universal social protection to end child labor, right? So what social protection measures should the world think about to end child labor, right? So this is some factual information you should know. You can use it even while writing your answers, and this can be asked in your preliminary exams of UPSC, of state PCSE, or any other examination government related, right? Bank, PO and all, everywhere this information is useful, right? Now as I told you that we are going to discuss the UN report related to child labor. It's very important for your mains answer and essay writing, right? So in answer writing and in essay writing, when you support your arguments with these valid datas, with these substantial data provided by international agencies, at that time you raise the level of your answer. That is when you get the maximum possible marks in that answer, right? So with that perspective, I have included all this data. This will be very helpful for the upcoming mains as well as the mains of next year. Whenever you sit for the examination, your data for child labor, this all data can be used there, and it has been provided by UN, right? So you can also mention the agency. So what does the report say? That around the world, the total number of children involved in labor work are 160 million, are around 160 million, right? You see, the from the entire population, child population of the world, 160 are still involved in child labor, right? We say that world is growing, world is developing, but you see there is a huge proportion of children who still have to lose their childhood in doing labor work rather than working on their own education and growth, right? So this is a very concerning situation, right? First data set that you can use. The second data point is that the number of children, child labor, this is a positive data set, right? Although the number of child labor is still very high, but if we see over the years, child labor has declined. As it says, child labor declined by 85.5 million. That means from 2000 to 2020, we saw a decline from 16% to 9.6%. Right? Initially 16% of the child population was involved in child labor. Now around 9.5% is involved. So we have made progress in reducing the issue of child labor, but still there is much more that needs to be done. Right? So this is a positive data set that you can use in your answers, right? Then again, a concerning situation. See, the level of a country's income that is used in the development of child, that is very important. Like we as Indians, how much money do we put in education of the children, especially at primary and secondary level? Then how much money do we put in their food security issues? All that matters in the overall results of a child. The future of the child depends on all these basic scenarios, right? So this data point tells us that around the world, at global level, if we see, the national expenditure on social protection of children amounts to just 1.1% of the world GDP, right? At the global level, if we see, अगर हर नेशन का आपने एक्सपेंडिचर देखना है, ऑन एवरेज जस्ट 1.1% of their GDPs are being put in the child protection area, right? Child social protection area. So this is again a concerning issue, right? Because all these measures, social protection initiatives, will only ensure that child develops in a positive and progressive manner in future. And if we are not putting money into these basic needs of food, education, healthcare, skill, all this, then that means that we are doing injustice to our children, and we are also losing our future, right? Now, finally, a regional data, that Africa is the region which has the largest share of children in population and in child labor, right? So Africa is the one region where child labor is one of the highest in the entire world. We all know that Africa is a continent that is struck by high amounts of poverty, hunger, malnutrition. So obviously the children there will also be the most vulnerable ones. They do not get adequate education, they do not get adequate nutrition, they do not get adequate health facilities. So obviously they are made to even work in various industries, mines, agriculture, etc., to earn a living for the family, right? So Africa, you can say, is the most affected region, right? So all these data can be used by you while writing your mains answer. These are very good, right? Now these are specific data points with regard to India, the situation of child labor in India. So see, not the entire thing is important for you, but the main things that we will discuss here, right? So 10.1 million children in India are involved in child labor, right? Of all the children of India, 10.1 million are involved in child labor, a very concerning issue. ठीक है, हमारे 10 मिलियन से ज़्यादा बच्चे चाइल्ड लेबर में involved हैं. That means we are losing the potential of our demography, of our younger population, if we are not able to educate them well, give them good hunger, good food opportunities, health opportunities, playing opportunities and development opportunities, right? So this is a concerning data, out of which if you see the gender divide, then 4.5 are females or girl child that are involved, and then 5.5 are the male or the male, you can say male child that are involved in the child labor field, right? Always in essays you can present the gender divide in the child labor data. So 4.5 million are girl child who are working as laborers, and 5.6, around 5.6 are the male child, right? So that is again a concerning issue. Then if you have to see, if I ask you which are the states in India that will see majority of child labor, tell me in the comment sections, what do you think, which are the states that will contribute to maximum child labor in India? Yes, Shreya, you are very right. Shreya, Rushi, Bittu, Rohit. Yes, you are very right. Ritu Singh, how do you think it would be? Maharashtra, right? We all know that we have some states which are titled as Bimaru, that means Bihar, UP, Rajasthan, all these states, they are really backward. They are not able to provide adequate social security benefits to their population. So the states of UP and Bihar have a majority of child labor in India, right? 2.1 million out of these 10 million, 2 million children are laborers from UP itself, right? So UP is the state having highest child labor, and followed by UP ka bhai Bihar, you can say. Always these states, although they are working really hard to improve their social parameters, but still they are the states which are usually at the bottommost in the hierarchy of these social parameters. So here in child labor also UP tops the list and Bihar follows it, right? Then again Rajasthan is the next area where child rights are not very well protected. We also see huge prevalence of child marriages in Rajasthan. So in different ways the rights and provisions of children development is not available in these states. So always in your answers you can mention the state wise distribution of child labor also in India. You can always draw this map. It's a very good map. When you will get the PDF, do check this map very carefully, draw it on your notes, on the side of your notes related to child labor. In that you can include this map, right? So this is basically the main data. This also you can say, of the total workforce of India, 13% comes from children, राइट? जितनी भी टोटल वर्कफोर्स आप देख रहे हैं इंडिया में, जितने भी लोग काम करते हैं, लेबर फोर्स में पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं, फ्रॉम दैट 13% इज कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड बाय चाइल्ड लेबर, राइट? अगेन अ कंसर्निंग इशू, राइट? सो what are the main areas? You tell me first, what are the main areas or industries where you see high prevalence of child labor? Tell me where in which industries do you see the presence of child labor in high quantities? Entertainment industry, yeah, recently in news, yes. Fireworks, yes, very right Bittu. Construction, yes, brick manufacturing, and also in the construction industry, the prevalence of child labor is very, very high and very concerning also. Bangle making, Shreya, very good, yes, right. Yes, Aditya. Yes, you all are right. So see, that is what has been written in this also. The areas where child labor is seen the most are cotton growing, mining industry, matchbox factories. There also the prevalence of child labor is very high. Okay, and then tea gardens, lock making factories. See, all these factories, they require very precise work, even in the bangle industry. So they require very high precision of work. So there usually जो grown up लोग होते हैं उनकी इतनी eyesight या vision नहीं होती that they could work accurately. So there these child labor are very efficient. So in all these industries where this precision work is done, there you will see high prevalence of child labor, right? Also child labor is very, very cheap. That is why they are not even accounted as laborers. Illegally they keep working, so the employer's labor contribution also decreases. That is why the prevalence of child labor remains very, very high in all these labor intensive sectors, right? So now, so ILO, you know that the very important international labor related agency, that is International Labour Organization, it has also made some conventions or world agreements that all the countries are needed to abide by to check the exploitation of children under child labor. ठीक है, ये ILO ऐसे rules, regulations, conventions, agreements बनाता रहता है जिससे ये इंश्योर किया जा सके कि चाइल्ड लेबर को कॉम्बैट किया जा सके. सो ऑल द मेंबर कंट्रीज ऑफ UN आर रिक्वायर्ड टू abide by the conventions or the agreements launched by ILO. It is not mandatory, but to be a responsible power at the world body, you face that international pressure to abide by the conventions or the agreements introduced by ILO, right? So two such important conventions, this has been asked in the prelims exams also of UPSC and other papers also. So these conventions are very important. You can use them in your answer writing also, and also in prelims they can be asked. So the first important convention is the Convention 182, ILO Convention 182, which deals with the worst forms of child labor, right? So it says that all the countries are required to end worst forms of child labor, like the children working in firework industry. It is a very dangerous, very hazardous industry. So this convention will say that all countries will have to work, will have to make provisions to end such worst forms of child labor, right? That is what this convention says. The second convention, second important convention is the ILO Convention 138. ILO Convention 138 that deals with the minimum age of employment, right? It guides the governments that at what age a child can be allowed in which industry, right? So you see in India also there is a Child Labor Protection Act, right? So that also specifies the age limit from 14 to 18. A child can work in non-hazardous industry and also with the family, right? After 18, there are changes. So this kind of, age requirements are provided under this convention, right? Age requirements were forms of child labor, right? Try to remember both these conventions. Both will be very helpful for you in your essays as well as prelims and mains answer writing, right? Now, if I ask you without seeing the board, can you tell me what do you think are the possible reasons for the prevalence of child labor around the world and especially in India? What are the main reasons for the high prevalence of child labor around the world? Do not see the board, please. We will discuss all these in detail, but I want to know your opinion, your knowledge I want to check here. Family income, poverty, education, no awareness of social schemes, high population, financial problems, Okay, lack of social protection for children, right? You all have many opinions and all of your views and points are correct. Let's put them in a perspective. Let's try to understand the entire situation, right? You see, in countries like India and Africa, the levels of poverty or garibi as we call it is very high, right? So क्या होता है कि many families, poor families, they do not get much income. You see the wage also that they get is around 2 to 3,000 rupees per month, right? So the parents themselves, they are not able to earn much money. So what they do, they see child as the breadwinner, right? They see child as the breadwinner of the family, right? They think that the more people they will employ in working conditions, the more money they will get. अगर एक बंदे को 3,000 महीने का मिल रहा है, both male and female of the house, they are earning 6,000. If that is not enough, if they add more children to the workforce, they will get additional maybe 2,000 or maybe even 1,500 for each child that is working, right? So the level of poverty is so high that to earn a family income, to run a family, these people push their children to labor force or to employment opportunities instead of sending them to education, right? Also, you see in these poor households, we see that there is a high level of alcoholism or irresponsibility on the part of either of the parent, ठीक है? या तो fathers एल्कोहलिक होते हैं, या मदर्स इररिस्पॉन्सिबल होती हैं, या नॉन वर्किंग होती हैं, राइट? सो यू सी देयर नेट मंथली इनकम रिमेन्स जस्ट 3,000 और लेस, एंड दे यूजुअली फेस हेल्थ बर्डन एंड ऑल सच काइंड ऑफ बर्डन. सो इट इज़ वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू मैनेज अ फैमिली विद जस्ट 3,000 rupees for a month, right? So to earn more income, because of the high levels of poverty that they face, they require more people to earn in the family, and that is why they send their children to these workplaces, right? So this poverty becomes the root cause of child labor in India. Hunger related to poverty itself, जब उनके पास पैसा नहीं है, मतलब वो भूखमरी होगी, खाना नहीं खा सकते. तो जब तक खाना ही नहीं अवेलेबल है, तो वो पढ़ाई का, एडुकेशन का कैसे ही सोचेंगे? दे विल फोकस ऑन फर्स्ट अर्निंग मनी सो दैट दे कैन फीड देमसेल्फ, राइट? सो द हाई लेवल ऑफ हंगर अगेन एक्ट्स एज अ reason for increasing child labor in the country, right? These are the first 2 points. Then next, see, in backward areas, less developed areas, the availability of social protection schemes like education, like good health care, like free food facility, all these are not available readily to the children. अब जब अच्छा स्कूल ही नहीं होगा गाँव का, तो पेरेंट्स भेजेंगे कहाँ बच्चे को पढ़ने के लिए? So what they do is instead get them employed, right? So I also give you an example from personal experience. At my father's workplace, I have talked to many laborers. So they are of the opinion that they do not see any value in education. That is also a very important point. Lack of access to education is the point. See, education creates twofold issues. First is they do not have access. Then linkage to jobs, right? So one of the laborers that to which I was talking with, I asked him कि आप अपने बच्चों को स्कूल क्यों नहीं भेजते हैं, यहाँ काम पे क्यों रखते हैं, राइट? सो उसका जवाब सामने से यही था कि मैम यहाँ पे रहेगा तो कुछ सीखेगा, रोटी कमाएगा, राइट? स्कूल जाके उसको क्या ही मिलेगा, राइट? सो द बेसिक आइडिया इज एजुकेशन कैनॉट गिव देम एम्प्लॉयमेंट, right? They do not see education converting them into well earning members of the family, right? Also उनके पास इतना पैसा तो होता नहीं है कि वो 10वीं 12वीं और उसके बाद भी एजुकेशन कंटिन्यू रख पाए, right? So lack of access to education plus lack of linkage between our education system with the employment opportunities, that creates a very big issue. This is a very important point. Please try to mention it in your answers. Ki there is no linkage between the education that we are providing and the employable employment conditions that exist, राइट तो अगर आप इनको एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड भी कर दोगे तो क्या ये हो सकता है कि 6th-7th स्टैंडर्ड के बाद दे आर एबल टू गेट एम्प्लॉयड समवेयर? You see, in other countries they focus on vocational training. So if a child is into education, so after 6th or 7th standard they start getting vocational training. टॉय मेकिंग उनको सिखाते हैं, कारपेंट्री सिखाते हैं, प्लम्बिंग सिखाते हैं. So that system is very useful because the child can get employed as he grows in age, right? But in India such provisions are lacking, right? So that is also a very big reason for child labor, right? Then there is lack of family planning, as many of you are suggesting that the family sizes are very huge in India, especially in the backward regions. Although nowadays the fertility rate is decreasing, but in the states that we discussed, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, the backward states, there the female fertility rate is still very high. So उससे क्या होता है, जब फैमिली बहुत बड़ी हो जाती है, दे आर नॉट प्लानिंग द नंबर ऑफ चिल्ड्रन दैट दे आर हैविंग, ऑल्सो दे डू नॉट हैव एक्सेस टू contravention services. So what happens is family size grows out of manageable limits, right? तो अब घर में अगर 5 बच्चे हैं तो उनको फीड करना 3000 की इनकम में is a huge challenge. So majority of the times child has to work to feed the entire family, right? So multiple children are also sent to workplaces to earn their income, right? And then implementation of laws and regulations. So there are so many laws and regulations in India that intend to protect children from labor, but are they working well? आप देखिए, आप घरों में बच्चे काम करते देखेंगे, आप ढाबों में बच्चों को काम करते देखते हैं, आप ब्रिक किल्स पे बच्चों को काम करते देखते हैं, आप हर जगह बच्चों को काम करते हुए देख सकते हैं, राइट? सो दैट ऑल ऑफ देम आर नॉट वर्किंग अंडर लीगल स्टेटस, right? So that means kahin na kahin the implementation of our laws and regulations is also very weak. That is why child labor continues. लॉ का भी कोई डर नहीं है लोगों को, एंड उसकी वजह से भी चाइल्ड लेबर को बहुत प्रमोशन मिलती है, राइट? Then there is high demand also, as I told you that child labor is very cheap. ठीक है, बच्चों को कुछ ज़्यादा पता तो होता नहीं है ना, वो कुछ बोलते हैं, आप कितने भी पैसे दो, राइट? सो इसीलिए डिमांड भी बहुत ज़्यादा रहती है चाइल्ड लेबर की हर इंडस्ट्री में, स्पेशली ढाबाज एंड ऑल दीज प्लेसेस, राइट? सो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट ऑल्सो वी फेस दिस इशू, राइट? एंड देन there is lack of decent work opportunity for adults and adolescents. ठीक है, अब देखिए अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इंडिया में हाई रहती है. सो as I told you, instead of the adult the child is preferred at the workplace. So उसी वजह से adults को जब employment नहीं मिलेगी, so बच्चों को obviously काम करना पड़ेगा, और बच्चों की डिमांड कभी भी लो नहीं होती है, तो that is what also results in child labor. And finally there can be issues like migration. अब see, there are many families that were migrate from UP, Bihar to areas like Punjab or Maharashtra for better work opportunities. So now what they want is to earn the maximum that they can, right? Because they are migrating, they are in an emergency situation also, right? So they also involve their children in the work. बच्चे जब migrate करते हैं तो वो पढ़ तो पाते नहीं हैं, उनकी language same नहीं होती है नई state में, उनका connect छूट जाता है, they cannot continue the education. So because of that also children are put into work field, right? So there exists a vicious cycle. You see, there exists a vicious cycle of child labor. So poverty, it results in child labor, right? Poverty results in child labor. That means, see, this will result in poverty results in child labor. Child labor means poor wages, poor education of these children, poor development, right? That means this will result in more poverty or poor labor standards. Now when the child is even not educated, मतलब वो poor ही रहेगा. It is only with the education or the higher education that you can transit from the weak economy to a stronger economy. आप पढ़ लिख के ही कुछ अच्छा कर पाते हैं. अब ये बच्चे हैं जो कि चाइल्ड लेबर में इन्वॉल्व हैं, राइट, तो उनकी एजुकेशन नहीं पूरी हो पा रही, उनके पास पैसा इतना नहीं है कि वो अपने आप में इन्वेस्ट कर सकें, उनके पास अच्छी हेल्थ नहीं है. ऑल दिस फिर फाइनली रिजल्ट्स इनटू मोर पॉवर्टी, right? So there is a vicious cycle that is continuing. Poverty results in child labor causes poor development of the child, and that again feeds the cycle of poverty in future, right? So that is why all these are the reasons that contribute in high levels of child labor around the world, especially in India also, right? So now what are the measures that have been taken by the Indian government to countercheck the issue of child labor? So on various levels the government of India is working. The very first and very effective initiative that government of India took was the making right education as the fundamental right, of the children. So now everyone is obliged to send their children to schools because they have the right to education. So until the age of 14 you cannot impact the education of a child. ठीक है, after school the children is allowed to work with his or her family, but before school the child cannot be employed, right? So this RTE, making education as the fundamental right, is the first initiative. Then the National Child Labor Project. National Child Labor Project is focusing on rehabilitating the चाइल्ड लेबर. अगर कोई बच्चे जो चाइल्ड लेबर में इन्वॉल्व हैं तो उन्हें उस चाइल्ड लेबर में से निकाल के उन्हें डेवलपमेंट का मौका, एजुकेशन का मौका और उन्हें वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग का मौका देना इज़ द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ नेशनल चाइल्ड लेबर प्रोजेक्ट. ठीक है, जैसे गवर्नमेंट ने किसी बच्चे को लेबर करते हुए पकड़ा तो उसके बाद उसे अच्छे से रिहैबिलिटेट करना, उसे एडुकेट करना, उसे फूड प्रोवाइड करना, हेल्थ सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करना, उसे स्किलिंग ट्रेनिंग प्रोवाइड करना, वोकेशनल एजुकेशन जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं, वो सब इस प्रोजेक्ट के अंडर किया जाएगा फॉर द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द चिल्ड्रन, राइट. So again this is a very important initiative, right. इसमें you can also add the legal initiatives that government has taken, like the Child Labor Protection Act, right. Constitutional provisions you should also add, Article 39F or Article 23 or 24. Tell me which article of these deal with the child labor prevention in India. Quickly tell me that which article of this of the Constitution of India deals with the child labor protection. Article 24, Article 1. Is that so, Kanu? Article 24, yes, Article 24 is the one that deals with protection, of child labor, right. Article 39F also deals with the nutrition and all those facilities of children in the country. So ऐसे जो भी constitutional provisions हैं that you can also add in this discussion, right. और जो भी आप पढ़ते रहें children related initiatives that the government has taken, you can always add to this list. Finally, the pencil portal, very famous, launched by Ministry of Labour and Employment to check child labor in the country. So these are basically the objectives. ठीक है, ध्यान से आप you can read this will help you in answering many questions in prelims or even in mains. You can mention pencil, the platform for effective enforcement for no child labor, right. इसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है, इफेक्टिव इन्फोर्समेंट ऑफ द लॉज. अभी हमने डिस्कस किया लॉज अच्छे से इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हो रहे, तो सबसे पहले एम यही है कि लॉज को अच्छे से इम्प्लीमेंट किया जाए. सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ विमेन एंड चाइल्ड वेलफेयर, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ लेबर, all these ministries and government authorities should coordinate very well. Police authorities, trafficking departments, all those should coordinate well to prevent prevalence of child labor, right? Then work on rehabilitation and see that rehabilitation happens very properly. Then general public को involve करना. See, general public is also a culprit. You see, हम भी तो दोषी हैं. We at our levels we employ these children in our houses, in our businesses. So we are also responsible, very highly responsible for the prevalence of child labor. तो इसीलिए इसका motive क्या है कि general public को भी aware किया जाए कि बच्चों को you should not employ anywhere. Right, so that is what is also the objective. ठीक है, सारी schemes का ensure that all these schemes are converged into one objective. ऐसे होता है हर बार इंडिया में. what is the issue? There are multiplicity of schemes but they are not able to achieve the intended objectives because there is no coherence between the schemes. So इसका focus यही भी है कि सारी schemes को converge किया जाए so that they are able to meet the objectives of smiling children in India who are not involved in labor, rather who are developing themselves to provide the fruits of their intellect to the nation in future. Right? Convergence is not really to bring on one floor. Convergence का यही मतलब होता है. देखिए, there can be schemes related to education, there can be schemes related to food for children, there can be schemes related to health. तो अब कन्वर्जेंस का क्या मतलब होता है कि ये सारी स्कीम्स अपने आपस में कोऑर्डिनेट करें और अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव होना चाहिए कि चाइल्ड को ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट मिले. राइट, तो एक बच्चा है जिसे आप चाइल्ड लेबर से प्रिवेंट करना चाहते हैं. सो व्हाट यू डू इज यू प्रोवाइड ऑल दी स्कीम्स टू दिस चाइल्ड so that holistic development of this child can happen from various schemes. That is the meaning of converging all the schemes at this point for this child, right? So this is a question for you, as you might be knowing by now that we have started this Seize the Mains initiative where we discuss one question each day. So try to write an answer to this question. Child labor is a menace that hollows out the future of a country, right? Discuss the causes of high prevalence of child labor in India. Also enumerate the measures taken by governments at global level and by India at national level to check child labor, right? So isko answer, you can write this answer on our website. You will get the link to the website in the description box, and tomorrow at 9 PM you will also get the discussion of this answer, right? You can post your answers on the website. You will get them evaluated also there, right? Now let's just quickly discuss one more topic, that is CPRE report. Already we have discussed this report in detail, but these are the few new findings with regard to nuclear weapons. So CPRE is saying that all the countries are expanding their nuclear arsenal. So India is also one country which is expanding its nuclear weapons, right? Pakistan also appears to be expanding its nuclear arsenal, and China is in the middle of substantial expansion of its nuclear weaponry, right? So ये आप finding देखिए, directly you can use in your mains answers whenever there is an essay or a GS question about the defense spendings, the nuclear proliferation or the nuclear threat to the world. You can always write that CPRE in its very recent report of 2022 has highlighted that all the countries around the world are increasing their nuclear arsenal, be it India, be it Pakistan, be it China. There is a concerning rise of the nuclear weaponry that is being developed by these countries, right? So ऐसे छोटे डाटाज बहुत हेल्प करते हैं आपको अपने आंसर्स को इम्प्रेसिव बनाने के लिए. सो की make a note of this data of the CPRE report and use them in your answers and essays wisely, right? Substantial expansion, So see, this is a term that has been used by this report. ठीक है, जैसे हम कहते हैं कि थोड़ा expand हो रहा है, substantial means you know considerable, you can say. अगर समझ लो इंडिया अगर 10 वेपन्स, न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स और ऐड किए हैं, जस्ट हाइपोथेटिकल एग्जाम्पल, सब्सटेंशियल एक्सपेंशन विड मीन दैट चाइना ने 100 और न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स ऐड किए हैं. तो हायरार्की है, जैसे हम कहते हैं गुड, वेरी गुड, एक्सीलेंट, उस तरीके से दिस इज अ टर्मिनोलॉजी दैट इज यूज्ड बाय सिप्री. सो इट सेज चाइना में सब्सटेंशियल एक्सपेंशन है, इंडिया भी एक्सपैंड कर रहा है और पाकिस्तान की अभी श्योरिटी नहीं है, इसीलिए अपीयर्स टू बी एक्सपैंडिंग. ठीक है, ओवरऑल आप ये कह सकते हैं कि द इंटायर वर्ल्ड countries, they are putting lot of money in the nuclear arsenal and that raises the threat of nuclear weaponry in the world. तो इसे अपने आंसर्स एंड अपने एसेस में यूज कीजिए. राइट, सो ओके, इज लाइव क्लास गोइंग ऑन डेली? सो जिसको हमारे इस इनिशिएटिव के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं है, लेट मी जस्ट टेल यू, एवरी वीक एट 2:30 PM वी ब्रिंग योर टॉपिक्स रिलेटेड टू वेरियस सब्जेक्ट्स फ्रॉम द करंट अफेयर्स टू दिस डिस्कशन. मंडे को आपके पॉलिटी के टॉपिक्स डिस्कस होते हैं, ट्यूसडे को इकोनॉमी के, वेडनेसडे को ज्योग्राफी इन्वायरमेंट साइंस के, थर्सडे को विद मी IR एंड हिस्ट्री एंड आर्ट एंड कल्चर, फ्राइडे को इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी एंड सैटरडे वी हैव मिसलेनियस टॉपिक्स. सो 2:30 को आप कभी भी ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं टू सी द डिस्कशन ऑन ऑल द रेलिवेंट करंट अफेयर्स दैट यू कैन यूज इन योर प्रीलिम्स एज वेल एज योर मेंस. राइट, so that's all for today. We'll discuss the next set of topics in next week because we are short of time now. Right, if you have any doubts, post it in the comment section and your answers you post on our website. You will get them evaluated. Thank you so much for joining.